I think I'll bring us back. I see, excuse me, people are still joining, but we definitely we're going to end by 3 p.m. So we want to make sure we have time for everything we want to do this afternoon. So for those of you who are coming back, welcome back. For those of you who are joining for the first time, hello and welcome. I'm not going to recount everything we did in the morning, but we did record the event this morning. So we'll post it on the Lake Superior Living Labs Network, which is www.livinglabsnetwork.org, which I think everyone should have. And I just want to, just as a quick reflection, I had the wonderful pleasure of going for a walk over the lunch break with Carrie, who happens to be on campus today. We were very socially distanced, and it was all good. But it was beautiful out, and she showed me a muskrat dam or muskrat home, and we were just reflecting on some of the morning's conversations a bit. And it was a really vibrant conversation. I had no doubt it would be, but Julian, started off with a discussion of a very short introduction to the ideas of just sustainabilities and spatial equity, and we kind of traversed in discussion, and really discussion structure, which I thought was not totally sure how it was going to work, but it worked really well, I think. Lots of people got to speak and give their input and ask questions, and we kind of traversed everything from disability rights, obviously settler colonialism, kind of relationships between urban and rural, and really kind of focusing too on some of the places where we're living here on Anishinaabe and Ojibwe territory, in Thunder Bay, Bawating, Sault Ste. Marie, Houghton, Michigan, and Duluth, and kind of everything in between and all around. So yeah, we'll record that, and it was recorded. We'll post it. So if you didn't get a chance to join, we'll make sure we get a note out when that's there, and everyone will hopefully have a chance to take a look at that. And just in terms of the next 2 hours, just roughly, I'll tell you what the plan is. I'm going to turn over to Rachel in a moment, who's going to moderate this afternoon's session. And I should, again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Charles Levko. I'm Canada Research Chair in Sustainable Food Systems here at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, Fort William territory. And we are, we're going to move into some discussions, very short presentations from the 3 existing hubs. I think we're going to start with Sault Ste. Marie and kind of move around the lake. And then after that, we're going to move into breakout rooms for those who are here. And we have some questions, which both will help us kind of reflect on some of what happened this morning, if you were here, some of the work happening around the lake, and then more importantly, where we want to go, and how we can kind of use this platform and this network to continue to kind of share our work, do new work together, and really kind of embed these ideas of justice, social justice and equity when we think about sustainability, and recognizing, as Julian discussed this morning, that, these are not separate, and we really can't think of one without the other. So with that, I will turn it over to Rachel Portinga, who will facilitate this afternoon.
Great, thanks, Charles. Hi, everyone. Rachel Portinga here, Network Coordinator for the Lake Superior Living Labs Network. So we're going to start with Sault Ste. Marie. Naren, if you want to go ahead, you should have the ability to share your slides. Wonderful. And I'll turn it over to you, Naren, at about 10 minutes. I'll just let you know you're at 10 minutes, if that's okay, and then you can take another minute or two to wrap up. For everyone listening, this particular session, because it's followed by a discussion, right now we don't have lots of time built in for questions, but we would still love to know what your questions are and be able to follow up with you in the discussion or afterwards over email. So please feel free to use the chat function to continue asking those questions, throwing out ideas throughout this session, even though we probably won't answer them all now, but would be great to know what they are. So Naren, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Naren Cameron. I'm the so-called, I guess, hub leader at our hub, although I'm very honored to work with all the other members as well. So I'm just like I'm more like a facilitator, I would consider myself. So entitled this presentation, very short, by the way, I know, feel free to cut me off, Growing and Learning on Campus. And I think this is very apt because just as was mentioned this morning, I find this is, at least for myself, and I will be talking kind of personally for myself in the presentation too, is it's a voyage of discovery. And I've come to this site, I've been on the site for about just over a decade. And when I look back to when I first came, it's like a totally, you know, I have a totally different perspective on everything. And I think that's what we're trying to do with the students and anybody who's engaged with this project. It's a transformative experience where we may be focused on growing, but we're also learning a lot of things through the process. So this is just a picture from our People's Garden, which is one of our partners on the site. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I know Charles did do that, but I feel this is a very, very important, it's a lived experience actually on the site. And I'd just like everybody to know that our university is on the site of a former residential school, and it's a, you know, it's a major part of this project. And Elizabeth, who's part of our project, is the director of the Shingwalk Residential School Center. So this is definitely a major part of our project. So we are situated here on we're the eastern, I guess we're the southeastern hub of the Lake Superior Living Labs network, unless we pick up another partner farther south or farther east. So this area is originally, or still known to many as Bawatting, I should say. And we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory. And this is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the Métis Nation. So here are many of our partners. There's others that aren't specifically listed on here or pictured on here that are very important. So I'll just give a quick overview here. So who's part of our Living Labs Eastern Hub? So myself, Elizabeth, as I was just mentioning, and Laura. So Laura's a huge part of this too. She's from, I'm from the Geography Department. She's from the Community Economic and Social Development Department. So she's really a critical member of this team. And of course, we have our community partners. So David, who's on the call from Rain. And we have the Food Bank Farm, Colin, I don't think he's with us today. And we have Harvest Algoma that's contributed as well. And we're hoping to nurture more partnerships. And I'm really excited about the summit today because I feel like it's really invigorating our network, and hopefully we can all like knit together a little bit more and reach out a bit more. So here's some of our projects. So some of our projects we identified at the beginning, but some, of course, are kind of evolving as we're going. And I feel like we had to move down the Maslow's hierarchy of scale a little bit when this pandemic hit, right? So we felt like we were I was, at least from my perspective, I was initially going a bit higher, but as the COVID hit, we were kind of, at least from my point, we're kind of moving down to make sure everybody's needs are being met. So some of the aspirational projects are the food forest, supporting People's Garden. So for that this year, you know, we were planning to expand, but now we're just like, we were just making sure it was actually planted again. I mean, that was where we were at. The Food Security Task Force, that's a university task force focused on food security. Laura Wiper, I'm speaking on her behalf for this one, the CSD Food Biodiversity and Slow Food in Canada's Arc of Taste project, a growth facility project, food security, excuse me, food certificate development, and workshops for students. So you can see some pickles. This is an activity we did with students. So the food forest, that's still kind of ongoing. What we've been finding, especially on our site, is anything that involves digging into the earth reaches a different level of consideration that needs to be taken, like considering we're a former residential school. So this is going to be more of a longer term project. We do have, I mean, if you look out at our forest, we already have a food forest. In fact, I've taken students through that for curriculum. So we do already have a food forest, but this was something that we were hoping to do like more from scratch, but we're still working on that one. The People's Garden, as I said, we just kept that going this year. It was kind of touch and go at the beginning, especially when community gardens weren't necessarily accepted as, you know, being COVID friendly. So we have been looking for a new location. What we're doing new this year is doing some winter gardening. Wish us luck with that. I'm talking on behalf of Laura for this slide, but Laura's been very active. She's the Slow Food in Canada board member, and she's been working on the Arc of Taste project, partnering to research food products and also species that are at risk due to economic, cultural, environmental factors. You can kind of read through these slides here. So she's had an opportunity to engage in research, training, working with students, and she's looking forward to publishing her work or their work and submit our candidates to the Slow Food Arc of Taste website. So I'd just like to congratulate Laura on all what she's doing. She's managed to keep going through this whole period, so we're really appreciating her work. We've also, I say we, I guess I would defer more to Colin Templeton, who's our partner with the Food Bank Farm. He's incredible. He's been creating a prototype facility in a shipping container. And we've been writing a manual up for that. And he's actually got it up and running, and it's designed more for our climate here as an alternative to a traditional greenhouse. And as I said, he's making great progress. I'm just tagging along for the ride. And he's been testing multiple crops and growing schedules and looking at different types of plants. And next step is to write an operation guide. So that's the growth facility. So a major part of our project is building relations. So in terms of doing anything on the site, we've been engaging with communities. So we held a visiting circle, some growing sites for campus activities. We had a campus master planning process. So we did receive support for growing on a particular site. That hasn't actually proceeded yet because we're still building relations, which is very important. We've had a ceremony in the summer. We kept the People's Garden going, and it was very productive. And we had another faculty social gathering, and we hope to do more. It was COVID safe, by the way. And for the future, as I said, a lot of it is built on relationships. So continuing to build those and deciding a path forward together with the others that are involved in the site and the original landholders. Some of the kind of general things that we'd like to achieve is teaching more outdoors. So we were already doing that, but we'd like to do that even more, especially with the situation we find ourselves in now. Having gathering places outside for the students. So I've seen like libraries outside and such, but just having gathering places for the students, being able to showcase mini models of faculty research and highlighting a variety of growing methods, realizing there's probably not one growing method that's going to satisfy all needs. And we're also working on a certificate in food studies at the moment. So I think that wraps up our presentation. As I said, I feel honored to work with all the members here, and I congratulate all our members that have made huge progress on their projects. I hope I hit, was I okay for my time?
You have 48 seconds left to spare, Naren. Beautiful, well done.
I don't have any jokes on the top of my mind right now, so I think I'll just pass on that time to others.
That sounds totally fine. I'm trying to also pause that so it doesn't make noise later. Thank you, Naren. It was so great to hear what's happening in Sault Ste. Marie and that you're making all of these connections with people and making connections with folks in Michigan and bringing them in as well. Really enjoying that. If folks, if you have questions about any of those projects, please put them in the chat. We know Naren does have to go to another meeting here soon, but happy to keep track of all those in the chat and connect people later with Sault Ste. Marie, with Naren in particular, as needed. So thank you. At this point, I think we just keep rocking and rolling to keep moving through these. And then if we have some discussion time at the end, that's great. So Randy and Catherine, I'm going to have you present next. I'll let you two I think you already have it set up, which one of you speaks first. So go ahead and share your slides and I'll turn it over to you two in Duluth.
Uh-oh.
We did see their slides, but then they disappeared.
Randy, I don't know what happened. Did he drop?
Nope, he's there. It looks like it's coming.
Okay, there you go. Yes. So I'm gonna display my minimal technological skills. At any rate, if we're gonna rock and roll, I'll be a rock and roller here. And my name is Randy Hansen, and so I'm one of the collaborators and hub leads for Duluth at Lake Superior College. And I've worked with people in our food system at a regional and state scale for quite a while in different ways. And trying to think about the regional food system as it encompasses the kind of, 8 counties in Minnesota and 8 counties in Wisconsin, which is generally the way that we have thought about the Western Lake Superior bioregion. And so it was wonderful to hear from Lindsay and Charles about the possibility of expanding a kind of shared understanding of this work and of just sustainabilities more generally. How do we live more mindfully, sustainably, and better around Lake Superior in sort of hatching this network under Charles's guidance, but also, with Lindsay and Catherine and Naren and others. And so I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple of things that I've been involved with. Like Naren said, obviously COVID changed the world and changed the region, and has limited significantly some things that we had in the works. And so, but the one thing that I have hatched over the last couple of years is something called the Eco-Entrepreneurship Program at Lake Superior College that is focused on sustainable and equitable community development, and develop curriculum that integrates science, experiential learning, entrepreneurship, and social analysis and engagement. And it's a degree program, but connected to it is something called the LSC Living Lab, which is essentially an outdoor classroom, a 2-acre farm that also serves as a community field school and as an institutional lever for positive community change. And I want to kind of show a little bit about that. In particular, the LSC Living Lab, which was built in collaboration and consultation with a whole host of our community partners, including the American Indian Community Housing Organization, the Lake Superior Sustainable Farming Association, the Duluth Young Farmers Coalition, and quite a number of other sort of organizations that are seeking to advance smaller scale, sustainable and regenerative agriculture in our region. And so in building this living lab, we sought to create a kind of multi-enterprising system that showcased in practice hydroponics, organic raised bed container gardening, biointensive permaculture, small fruit production, mushrooms, native plants, native pollinator habits, as well as build-in food forestry in a park area. And it's been happening for, like I say, about 2.5 years. And this was built on the campus, which is in the heart of Duluth, in something called the Spoils Site, which is aptly named because essentially the debris that was excavated from building this building on the left there was all kind of piled onto this site. We kind of redid that, reimagined it as our farmscape, and you know, raised considerable money and enjoyed considerable investment on the part of the college to build this site. And it has two high tunnels, one that's hydroponic and one that's soil-based. This is the hydroponic production system. It produces about 200 pounds of lettuce a week. And that is, well, during COVID times, it was gifted mostly to the American Indian Community Housing Authority and one of the local food banks. But we also now are marketing it to local grocers and restaurants and an on-campus market. We created, as part of this applied learning, a student-centered eco-enterprise that the label is LSC Farms, locally sustainable, cool, is the sort of way we talk about it, but it's Lake Superior College, obviously. But it integrates the students in the program directly into all aspects from seed to sale of the produce, engaging with community you know, growing it, processing it, and marketing it to the various places that it goes. You know, the hydroponics lettuce floats, you know, are fun to work with, highly productive, and you know, are a small piece of sustainability, I think. We built permaculture systems on site. We built the food forest where we sought to mimic a forest ecosystem by gathering wood in the forest around us, old wood, digging these trenches, lining them with that wood, adding mycelium and other spores, and then wood chips, and then backfilling that and planting fruit trees into it. And this has taken off amazingly in the year since we've planted. We started as part of our community outreach, a Lake Superior Mycological Society, where lots of community people with amazing sort of foraging interests and activities are coming to campus and participating in engaging with our students and each other. We started a farmers market on site. We have a lot of low-income students, and we sell the product at a low rate so that students can purchase them. We sought to create a native space on site, Anishinaabe Gitagan, and worked with our campus and our community to, and with community partners to do this. But in sort of recognition of some of the conversations we had earlier this morning, the administration put the kibosh on it. As our vice president said, everything has a tail. And they were afraid of the tail, so to speak, of the ramifications of citing an indigenous garden, Anishinaabe Gitagan, on campus, and what it would obligate them to do. And so, at least for the time being, they've put a hold on that, which speaks to the kind of state of affairs in our region, in our state, in the United States. So a couple of other projects, one of which is that COVID, I serve on the board of the Lake Superior Sustainable Farming Association, and this COVID has really upended local agriculture, systems as they existed. And so one of the things that we did was gain funding for and build a kind of website that connects consumers, eaters with local farmers directly. This is up and running. It's Roots and Recipes is the name of it, and it features recipes, but it's really a system designed to connect farmers and eaters. Another project that we had with a whole series of community partners, building on the American Indian Community Housing Authority's work in their indigenous food work, is launching something called Superior Taste, and it was an event that sought to highlight and bring together value-added agriculture products in the winter in our region. But we've had to put that on hold and are not going to launch it this year, just because of the COVID and other things. And so just in sum, I just want to say that, this has been a great project to work with the Lake Superior Living Labs Network. I've learned a lot from what's going on in our region, and look forward to continuing and working with our sort of local regional partners, but also sort of the partners all around Lake Superior. And with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Okay, it looks like I'm disabled to share my screen.
Okay, you should be able to now.
Okay. Okay, is that working for everyone?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So hi, I'm Catherine Millen. I'm a legal anthropologist. I teach at UMD, and my area is commons, commons governance, commons property, commons wealth. And so I'm just going to talk about two sites and two projects that are happening here at UMD, one in teaching and one in research. And I'm going to focus less on the teaching and more on the research, because I feel it's one of the great collaboration results of our network. This project wouldn't have gone forward without the collaboration with NARNet Sault Ste. Marie. So I'll begin with the teaching is about, in both cases, I'm going to focus also a little bit on the role of art as a way of communicating with community. And also note that these are off-campus projects for community engaged projects. And I hope that we at some point can talk a little bit about that on campus versus off campus community engaged projects and things we face with our institutions for working in both these ways. So I'll just note that the area that I'm working in here is part of the 1854 treaty. So this is ceded lands that over which Indigenous peoples here in the Anishinaabe group have treaty gathering, hunting, fishing, and other rights. And those are something we are trying to integrate into the Solar Commons project, which I'll again talk about. So very quickly, the teaching project here is with a course on energy in our community, and the students host every year a power dialogue, so a conversation about our energy system. And so this is really about a just energy transition. Both of these projects are. So in this case, this was the one that was canceled for this last spring, but we have a relationship also with an artist, a well-known artist in the United States, Shepard Fairey. So we get to use some of his posters on this. And we, in this case, we were looking, the students do research on our, on our investor-owned utility, Minnesota Power, and they then try to make that visible and turn that into a conversation we can have. In this case, we have a very strong connection to Manitoba Hydro, and so we brought, in this case, this year we were bringing in issues of Indigenous peoples up in the region of Manitoba, because the whole plan up here for Duluth was to go to renewable energy, 50% renewable by next year, thanks to a big connection to Manitoba Hydro, which may not last too long because our utility is also planning to build a giant gas plant nearby. So as we go off of coal. So we have a lot of things we talk about with regard to that. We try to bring equity issues in. Sometimes we do comparisons between our town and say Minneapolis versus fuel sources. We really try to educate our community with this. The students do that. This will be up there so you can see, you can go to the website to see one of the way the community event worked. But what's key here too for us is that we invite the Theater for Public Policy, which is a kind of stand-up comedian sitcom group, and they come up, and we, for this case the year before, we invited city council people from Minneapolis, from Duluth, as well as others on the stage. They talked about just energy transition here, and then in between they're talking, and these were all things that the students researched, and they were the students' questions. And then in between, comedians got up and acted out what the policy people said. So the audience was laughing, crying, etc. And a good time was had by all. In other words, we would like to make that into some kind of template for community conversations about their energy systems and a just transition, and making that visible using community theater. So we can talk more about that later, but the other project that I want to spend more time on is the Solar Commons research project. So this is a project I started over 10 years ago when we were still living in Arizona. So the first one is actually there, but the next one is going to be here in Minnesota, and we are building it up in the Lake Superior watershed on the Iron Range in Virginia, and on the Bois Fort reservation areas. And so I'm going to talk about that, but the basic idea here is that we are trying to innovate trust law, a little bit as what Julian was talking about this morning. We're taking the community land trust model, which takes land out of speculative markets, and it captures the wealth of that and puts it into a trust and holds that trust and makes sure it comes back into the community, local community, as an empowerment tool. So we are innovating trust law for solar energy. We use public art as well as the legal realm in order to be able to address the kind of claim issue and acknowledgement issue that people here, local people are owners, or rather can make a claim to the Commonwealth. And then we have a scaling project with it. So I'll just very quickly say that the key research question here was, how did we build an equitable energy system in the past? Here's a picture from 2011 that shows a person in Ireland collecting peat for heat in the house. And this person doesn't own the land at all, but that person owns intergenerationally, because he lives there, a right to energy benefits that are in the land. In this case, it's peat. So because of a trust a relationship that is over 1,000 years old in that territory, which we in Canada and the US have in our legal system with trust law, we can access this idea. This was called a Turbury Commons, so for peat. So the question for us was, for our region, how would we build an equitable energy system today? Could we think about gathering sunshine and holding it with solar panels as a technology, and then using that commonwealth to keep it back into our community, take it out of the speculative markets of energy pricing, and then move it after a short time back into the community. Here's how we did it, and then I'll show you the project we have up on the Iron Range. So it kind of works like this, you know, the sun shines on an energy panel here. So we collect the commonwealth of the sunshine. It creates savings on the meter of whatever host is hosting this. And by the way, this can be done through a donated panel, or it can be done through a financed solar energy panel. So so it goes into the meter as savings, and the host agrees in an agreement form to pass those savings on to a trust. Because the panel lasts for 20 years, the trust will also last for 20 years and more. So we have a 20-year income stream that's going to then be delivered to beneficiaries in the community. So it's an empowerment empowerment system to capture economic wealth and keep it local in the community. So how is this going to work here? And since we share in our region, we share very similar solar capacity. The numbers
Catherine,
are kind
can
of
you hear
similar.
me? Sorry, I know, I
Sorry?
do want to make sure Lindsay has enough time as well. Would you be able to give us one final minute, and then we can get to Lindsay's? I love this project, so I could let you talk forever, but.
Thank you for interrupting me. It's so right. It's so hard. Let me just say in 1 minute that what we have is these are the groups that are working together. I just I'm just in the process of raising $1 million, $1.2 million for it. We have invitation for that. Here's what it will look like in there. We have a donation for a storefront there. It's a community kitchen that will be the beneficiary. The host is LEN. Is right up here, the only solar manufacturing plant in here in Minnesota, also existing at LEN in Sault Ste. Marie. And thanks to Naren, we had that connection. The beneficiary is going to be the Bois Forte tribe and others that are building together in an integrated way and indigenizing a local food project. And here's the last thing I want to say is that what we also want to do with this is show how our community is gathering and exercising gathering rights, and acknowledge that this is the public art for the project in Tucson, which we just finished, the Solar Commons. There's the panels, but it is about passing on intergenerational wealth. And so we want to make sure that this then can iterate around the Great Lakes as a ownership structure for a just energy transition.
It's so exciting. Thank you both, Randy and Catherine, for sharing about what's happening in the Duluth Hub. If you have questions about those, people have already started putting in the chat. Go ahead and continue that. And then now we'll turn it over to Lindsay to tell us about what's going on in Thunder Bay.
Great, thank you very much, colleagues. And so I'm joining you today. My name is Lindsay Galway. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Health Science here at Lakehead University. I'm also a newly appointed Canada Research Chair in Social Ecological Health, and also an uninvited guest on the traditional territory of Fort William First Nation. And what I decided to do for the short presentation that I have today is to speak a little bit about relationships. So I'm sure many of you are thinking about relationships as we've moved through the day today. in that relationships really are the foundation of the kind of work that we are already doing, and also the work that we want to be doing more of. And here on this screen, these are just actually the Lake Superior Living Lab Network objectives for the project as a whole, our 3-year project. And I think if you just take a look at those, I'm not going to read them, but you'll see why relationship building is so central. And of course, when I'm talking about relationships, I'm talking about relationships within our hub, across the network, and also more broadly to the watershed. A question will be in the land within the watershed. A question will be unpacking in one of our breakouts here. And so in the Thunder Bay hub, and I do like Nairn's comment, I think we should adopt this, I'm just saying this to Rachel and Charles, as a facilitator. I've been the facilitator really of our Thunder Bay hub for the last year. And largely we've been very much focused on sharing, learning from existing projects that our members are working on. And we have a large group. So we have a lot of really exciting, interesting, innovative projects underway working towards just sustainabilities, but also in this first year really doing this work of building relationships. So again, rather than speaking to any of these projects, because there really are too many and I didn't want to speak on behalf of our members, my members in our hub, I thought I would share 2 specific examples that processes really, that we've used in our hub to do this work of starting to build those foundational relationships and respectful reciprocal relationships specifically. So the first process that I wanted to speak to briefly was something that we did back in February. So of course, this was right, before COVID, right before a lot of things changed. And we had initially started this process as what we had envisioned as being the first step in a longer visioning process, but we've sort of adjusted our goals, for the year because of COVID realities. But I actually have taken the words from here, a quote on the screen from David Greenwood, one of our members. I don't believe he's here today, but David Greenwood and Devin Lee, and there's a link here for a paper describing the labyrinth more generally for anyone who might be interested in reading that. But this is the words, a nice quote that I thought I would share. The labyrinth is a dynamic transformational process that taps into embodied interior experience, drawing it out into collective view. And so it was this piece, the drawing things out into collective view, that I, as a facilitator in particular, was interested in using this process to support our relationship building. So I worked with David Greenwood and some of the members of the Lakehead Labyrinth Learning Community to generate 2 questions that we wanted to ask our members while we did the Labyrinth Walk and Listening Circle process. So these questions were, what do you need from the emerging Lake Superior Living Lab Network Collaborative to sustain your journey? And what can you imagine creating? And so I've also included a video link there for anyone who might be interested to learn and see more about the Labyrinth. That little link there will, it's about a 3-minute video about the Labyrinth in general. So just to visualize that in your minds, what this actually looks like. So this is a large, the 24-foot canvas there that we use for this process. And actually this year, we will have created on Lakehead University's campus a permanent outdoor labyrinth, which is exciting. So there in that second image, you can see our group actually walking the labyrinth and contemplating those guiding questions. And after doing this, after walking and doing that sort of internal gaze and internal reflective work, we sat and shared in a listening circle and shared those responses to those questions in our group. So again, those questions, what do you need from the emerging collaborative to sustain your journey? What can we imagine creating together? So I took everything that was shared in our listening circle and I looked for key themes. I looked for the patterns that were emerging from what was shared to create these key themes that now have become, for me as a facilitator and for our group, almost a sort of compass. So what is it really that we are aiming towards? What's important for us and what is important in terms of how we go about our work in terms of working towards just sustainability in Thunder Bay and more broadly as we move forward across the watershed. So certainly relationships was a key theme, again, with each other and with this place, with the land, creating change collectively. So real interest in creating change. And also, there are a lot of people shared an interest in wanting to share perspectives, share ideas, share stories, not only in our hub, but with, really with all of you who are joining us today and beyond across the network. So that was the first process that we used. And again, that was sort of before COVID happened and we had engaged in a range of things throughout the year. But over the summer, we've been working on something called the Sustainability Stories video series. And so we felt this was a nice example, a nice project that would allow us to do this work of reflection, sharing, and relationship building within our hub in particular during COVID times. And so we've used video as a medium to examine, to profile, and ultimately to share stories of just sustainabilities emerging from this place, from Thunder Bay, and to profile some of the projects that our hub members are involved in and leading in relation to teaching, research, and action. So we decided to use some of our funds to support a master's student who has skills in videography to engage and lead this process, really. His name was Gavin. And so this is how the process has unfolded. We set up a small working group and we met a number of times over this summer. And the role of this working group was really in large part to explore this question, which was really important for our work. Whose voices and which stories? This was in our conversations, several tensions arose in terms of answering those really important questions. And we also, as a small working group, developed a general process to guide Gavin, the student, in his work. So Gavin did a lot of work to learn about the network, to engage with some of the higher level ideas guiding our network, and then met with and had conversations with and filmed those conversations with our members, really wanting to hear the story of the projects, really probing about relationships, again, those relationships among people and relationships to place, and also asking some of these questions, these often hard questions around justice and sustainability and just sustainabilities. And then he's been lately, over the last month and a half, doing a lot of editing and a lot of checking in with our members that were involved in the videos, gathering feedback, and really doing this in a very collaborative way. So that's where we are now. We have a whole set of videos that are nearly ready to be shared more broadly. And our next steps as a group are going to be having a screening event to share videos and actually use that as an opportunity to deepen conversations about our work and also deepen our relationships. And hopefully actually co-writing a short piece, I think, about how to use collaborative video creation as a process for supporting reflection and relationship building. So here I'm at a point where I'm going to ask Charles. He's got this video. This is a short video that Gavin's created, and really we've called it the synthesis video, but it could be thought of as a trailer for the video series that we've created. So go ahead and share that video from your computer, Charles.
But Lindsay, maybe you could just talk as we're watching this, if you want to just say a word about what's happening.
Yeah, and I guess I can't really speak to the video because what we did is it's a synthesis video that shares just a little bit of a taster on the series of videos that we have created. And we spoke with Elder Jean, an elder in residence here at Lakehead University at the outset of this project to sort of guide what we were doing. And we listened to his words and his thoughts and sort of wove it all together. But what we'll do is we'll share this in the chat box, and then perhaps folks can look at this afterwards or at another time to sort of, again, just as a little trailer and an inspiration to check out our video series when it is available. Okay, great. And so the last thing I was going to just speak to was that, again, very shortly we'll have this set of videos available to share, which will be profiling this work that our members are engaged in. And I just wanted to speak very briefly to perhaps where we are headed in our work in the Thunder Bay Hub. We've just sort of planted the seed and just started initial discussions about this idea of a watershed field school, which would be, I think, grounded in, situated in the idea of just sustainabilities as a framework for teaching and learning, and to work with our members to develop and to implement a field school for students and perhaps possibly community members as well. So again, we're in the early stages of exploring this idea, but it's something there's been a lot of excitement about, a lot of interest in from our own members in Thunder Bay, but also some of our collaborators across the lake. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Lindsay. No
Lindsay,
worries.
I think I just figured out the audio, but I don't know if we want to try one more time, if we have a second.
Yeah, give it a try.
Okay, let me try one more thing. I think I know what I did wrong. Can you hear?
Mhm.
You may have to
From the
show it.
perspectives about life, because you've heard many times before, everything has life. So you have to learn the teachings, the 7 grandfather teachings, how to look at that In my language, when I say prayer, I say Namah. Namah means setting our life straight. You know, so that whole philosophy of spirituality is based on what can I do to set my life straight. And when I look at these 4 elements of life of who I am, I'm made out of water, air, earth, and fire. There's a fire that's burning here. And if that fire is out of control, you know, and I'm off balance. So I have to balance these 4 areas in my life. And if you look at Mother Earth these days, you know, the fire, the water, the air, you know, that I think that you're starting to see out of balance, you know, fires going out of control, water contaminations, you know, and the air that we breathe is you don't have the good quality of air. So what happens is it affects my whole being.
The Lake Superior Living Labs Network is a collaborative project informed by calls for an integrated approach to address concerns at the nexus of well-being, water, food and land, climate, and energy.
Our goal is to bring just sustainability to life through community-engaged teaching, research, and action across the Lake Superior watershed.
Okay, well, we did it. I think the internet was a little slow too. Anyway, we can't get it all right, can we, guys? But thanks everyone for listening, and we'll move into some. I'll pass it back to Rachel, and I'm looking forward to more discussion in our smaller groups.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. We are prepared to put you in breakout rooms, but we want to be intentional about taking a bio break right now for 2 minutes. So if you need a bio break, 2 minutes, go ahead. If you are going to come back in 2 minutes, just leave your video up. If you're not able to stay with us for the breakout rooms, go ahead and leave the call, and thank you for joining us now. Otherwise, in a couple of minutes, you'll have an invitation to join a breakout room, and there'll be a facilitator there to walk through some great questions. So see you in 2 minutes.
I think everyone's back. Welcome back to the main room. We obviously our group could have used more time. I'm sure others probably feel that way too. It's never enough time, but we do want to make sure we're not on Zoom for the rest of our life. And this is one way to do it, is to give some time limits to things. So by way of closing, I wanted to ask one rep from each group to just not to go over everything you talked about, but just to be able to maybe share back one big idea or one key thing that we could take away as we go back to our regular lives after this summit. There were note takers, so we'll collect some of that, and we'll try to put some of that together and share it back with everyone, including this recording, which we'll share on the website. So I think the plan was, if you are the rep, or if you're willing, if you were designated the rep, or you're willing to be the rep, maybe just throw in the chat box that you're the rep, and then when I see it, I can call on you. So we're just gonna do that. We're gonna go through that really quick, and then we'll wrap up. So. Okay, okay, so let's start with Jacob. We'll just go down the list. Jacob,
all right.
okay.
Yep, I'm here. We had a good discussion, and when we were talking about what we would like to see if the hub is 100% successful, and start to see the connections that we have within each of our hubs be just as strong, or the connections that we have between hubs be just as strong as the ones that we have within each of our hubs, and help bring those diverse sets of knowledge to each of our projects in acting work in all of the communities. But we would also like to see you work on working on that diversity and expanding the diversity that we currently have in the group to support those forward actions.
Thanks, Jacob. Now I'm just going to go down this list as they come up. Kirsty, do you want to go next?
Sure. So, so the one thing that we want to share is that we were, so first of all, we spent a lot of time sharing different ideas, different things about what's happening, and we all kind of enjoy hearing from each other and sort of the similarities that we have and also some differences. And what we wanted to share is that we are most thankful to have had that time together. So to have had time to connect with others, though we may be physically separate, as Charles was mentioning, we are not so connected across our border and around the watershed. So we're really grateful just to have this time with others to share what's happening. And though many of us are overwhelmed and already involved in so many things, it was still nice to hear from others. And then we can, you know, as it suits us and as we want, we can continue to connect in our own ways, but happy to have had this space to hear what's happening and share with others.
Thanks, Kirsty. Lindsay.
I'm going to report back for our group because I was so excited to start talking. I forgot to offer the opportunity to somebody else. So I just dove into questions to start hearing from everybody. But we too did not have enough time to chat. And I think the two things I'll share from our group is that I think there was a real interest in just wanting to share more, talk more, learn more about each other, and a real obvious opportunities to continue to unpack the work that, you know, the various people in our group were doing and looking for connections that could support more work and work towards integrated work and sort of supporting co-benefits. That wasn't the language that our team necessarily used, but that's how I was interpreting it. And the second piece is we spent a good part of our conversation talking about inclusion and sort of in some ways being quite critical of the notion of inclusion, and that it's almost too late when you're saying inclusion, and that can also often be tokenism in practice, and reflecting on the importance of listening, starting by listening, doing the real work that is involved in relationship building and the time that is required to do that, despite the fact that our structures, our systems often don't support and value that work. And that this notion of belonging is something we just started to talk about, I think, but wanting to consider that more fully in terms of how that relates to our work and how it relates to perhaps moving forward and relates to just sustainabilities. Did I miss anything, team?
Great job.
And Catherine, who is muted.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm going to ask other people in our group to speak up as well. Our group was, you know, it turned out there were just the kind of, on the one hand, legacy knowledge of people who had been doing work around Lake Superior and remembered things that were working before, say in the 1990s, that were connections that had over time, as things changed, gotten lost, but were useful and should have been continued. And so I will be bringing those back to our steering committee to see if we can ignite some of those. And then, you know, we were also really, again, my interpretation, I was so eager to listen and hear from other people who were talking about things that they did not have administrative problems with at their universities, and they were able to do things that we were not here at our hub. And again, sharing and being able to, you know, the usefulness of the hub for that. So others, please, could you talk about other things that were important?
Could we talk about the art and using drama as a way to bring people together?
Yes. we had a great discussion about that. And our group was also from part of a, you know, kind of improv theater there, and had done that kind of translation work, you know, and usefulness of sharing that, and maybe even creating, you know, ways in which that can be done, share what we know about that. So we had a great talk about that, about the use of art, especially theater improv. Not just instead of academic things, but I know for my students, I have them do that instead of writing a paper, that they have to translate it into that art. But in our group, it turned out people were very interested in that and had been doing that too.
Is there anyone else who didn't, if we missed a group, or if anyone else feels an urge to make some final comments before we close out?
I thought Jacob did a great job for our group. I'm not trying to change it. But David brought up an interesting point that we've been doing a lot of relationship building, and that's wonderful, and we should continue, but we are looking forward when we think about us being successful in the future, like, and Lita said this too, we're taking action, where, you know, actions are happening, and we've seen that happen, and we're kind of moving to this next level now, and some enthusiasm around taking those projects, taking these relationships, and seeing those projects develop.
Hi, it's Denise. In the chat pod, I just want to let you know that I put the link to Dr. Wendy Smythe, who will be speaking as part of a virtual series at Lakehead University on Wednesday, November the 4th. And her research background is she's a geoscientist and an oceanographer. And some of her work there's a bunch of things here, but part of what she does work on is the microbial ecology and molecular diversity, amongst a bunch of other things, including hydrothermal volcanoes and hot springs and stuff. But in part, you know, part of her talk is focusing on taking traditional indigenous knowledges and how we navigate that in a COVID environment. And so she'll be looking a little bit at funding, how maybe she navigates some of that. And she's quite an accomplished researcher. And so I just thought that that might be of interest to the group or to your students. And it's wide open to the public.
That's great. Denise, can you put that, oh, sorry, probably the same thing. Can you put that back in the chat? I think you put it in the chat box when some of us weren't here, and then it only didn't go to everyone. So there you go. Thank you.
And she's a prof at UMD right now.
Any other final thoughts or final words? Well, okay. So with that, I'm just sharing this final image with you, so you have some reference. So I just close us out. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you who participated today. Thanks so much to the steering committee to help put this together, who is listed on this slide, to Julian, who's not here anymore, but spent the morning with us. And of course to Rachel and Shadia for taking on some of the facilitating responsibilities and organizing the agenda with me over the last little bit. As I've said a few times, the real intention of this summit was to have really get together and be in place together. And, you know, I think we had some ideas of how this would go, but overall, I think it's gone pretty well. The goals of the summit were really to share with each other, to build some of these relationships, and to kind of move towards action as we kind of move to the next phase of this work. And a lot of us are already doing that. So, you know, this is really, I think, it's been a really good chance for me, at least, to kind of meet some of you who I haven't met before, but also to reconnect with some new folks and some older folks as well, who we have some relationships with. So, and I think, again, starting the day with a conversation about just sustainabilities and spatial equity is really, it wasn't an accident. It was very intentional to try to move that through some of our conversations today, which I think, at least I know, happened in the conversations I was part of. So so thank you for everyone for being part of that. I want to end by saying, please connect with your hub lead. This is, the Lake Superior Living Labs Network is by no means a kind of membership only closed group, but we did try to create a bit of a governance structure to kind of help kind of share the responsibilities and have some figure out how to begin to work together, although we're constantly kind of renegotiating and discussing how to make it work better. So each of the 3 hubs are listed there, Naren, Lindsay, Randy, and Catherine. And then of course, Rachel is part of the funds we have from the Social Science Humanities Research Council pay for Rachel to essentially help with the coordination of the network, doing things like sending out emails, newsletters, which we've been doing fairly regularly, and what we called mini meetups. So mini meetups, if you haven't been part of one, Rachel organized these last year, was that kind of 45-minute lunch hour once every 2 months, or actually I think we did once every month for a while, where we were essentially just getting together to connect, to share maybe one project that's going on. And we'll be doing more of those coming up. So if you want to get on that email list, again, you can connect with Rachel directly or with the different hub leads. Of course, the website as well, Living Labs Network, which is more just a holding place for all the things that we're kind of sharing and trying to do together. The last thing I'll say is one of the things I heard from the groups that came up is that we really, it's great to share and we want to be doing more together. And we've already talked to a number of you about this idea of a Lake Superior Climate Action Field School. That is really just an idea at this point, but an idea that we are currently looking for funding for, which might enable some of us and some of our some youth leaders over the next year to actually travel to some of the hubs and get to have some hands-on learning and experience with each other. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, there's lots more ideas, and we're really, I mean, again, nobody controls this network. It's really just meant to be a platform for all of us to kind of share, learn, build relationships, and of course, act together. So with that, unless, again, there's anything I missed or should be said, I think we'll close it out. And I really hope that we all get to physically be together sometime soon, but also just to get to talk to each other again soon. So again, thank you so much. I feel really blessed and really honored to be with everyone today. Put my email aside for a little bit and just to kind of be in place with everyone. So thanks very much. And I think that's all. And we'll be in touch soon. We'll post all this and share all the links with everybody. Okay.
You will have more emails from me. Thanks, everybody. It's so good to see some faces with names.